The Novali were not made for war. Their world, Novus Prime, circled a gentle yellow star in the peaceful Cygnus arm of the galaxy. The planet knew no harsh winters, no scorching summers, and no natural disasters beyond the occasional rain shower. Even these rains fell softly, nourishing rather than destroying. On this world, the Novali had evolved, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms, large eyes that shimmered like polished gems, and slender bodies that rarely grew taller than 5 feet. They had never known hunger or true danger. Their society developed without weapons, without armies, and without the concept of violence as anything but a theoretical idea. When they reached for the stars, they did so out of curiosity, not conquest. Captain Lori stood on the bridge of the Novali exploration vessel. Gentle dawn, her bright blue skin reflecting the soft light of the ship's controls. The vessel was a marvel of Novali engineering. Smooth curves, gleaming white surfaces, and crystal viewports that offered sweeping views of space. Like all Novali ships, it carried no weapons. The idea would have seemed absurd to the shipbuilders. "Status report," Lori said, her voice melodic as she addressed her crew. Teal, the communication officer, looked up from his station. His eyes blinked twice, a sign of contentment among the Novali. "All systems nominal, Captain. The colony ships report successful landing on the New World. They have begun setting up the first biodomes." Lori smiled. This mission was going perfectly. The new planet, dubbed Haven, was the 7th world colonized by the Novali in their 300 years of space exploration. Like all their colonies, it would focus on scientific research and cultural exchange with other peaceful species of the Galactic Commonwealth. The Commonwealth, a loose alliance of 47 spacefaring species, shared the Novali's peaceful nature. All had evolved on worlds without extreme dangers or resource scarcity. All had developed technology without developing weapons. All believed that intelligence and violence were opposing forces, that truly advanced beings outgrew the need for conflict, Captain, called Maury, the sensor officer. "I'm detecting unusual energy readings at the edge of the system." Lori moved to Maury's station, 2 of her 4 hands clasping behind her back in a gesture of mild concern. "Source?" "Unknown. The pattern doesn't match any Commonwealth signature." Maury's skin, normally a deep blue, had paled slightly. "The objects are moving toward Haven at high speed." "Open a channel," Lori ordered. "Standard Commonwealth greeting." Teal worked his console with practiced efficiency. "Channel open. Broadcasting welcome message." The bridge crew waited. In 3 centuries of space exploration, first contact always followed the same pattern. Greetings, exchange of mathematical principles to establish common ground, then language sharing. The Commonwealth had never encountered a species that didn't respond positively to peaceful overtures. "No response, Captain," Teal reported after several minutes. "Keep broadcasting," Lori said. "Perhaps their communication systems are different from—" The ship suddenly shook. Not violently, but enough to cause the crew to grab their stations. For support. An alien sensation on a Novali vessel. "What was that?" Lori asked, her voice steady despite her rising concern. Maury's hands moved frantically over his sensor panel. "Some kind of energy pulse. It passed through our hull." His skin was now pale gray, the Novali equivalent of fear. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple objects. Large vessels approaching rapidly. They're launching smaller craft toward our colony ships." The main view screen showed the approaching vessels. Unlike the smooth, curved ships of the Commonwealth, these were angular, asymmetrical, and bristling with protruding structures. They reminded Lori of the crystalline predator plants that grew in the Commonwealth Museum of Extinct Life Forms, all sharp edges and dangerous points. "The colony ships are reporting." "Captain, they're reporting attacks." Teal's voice cracked with disbelief. "The unknown vessels are forcing their way into our ships. There are reports of colonists being taken." Lori felt a sensation she had never experienced before. A cold tightness in her chest, a racing of her hearts. Her people had no word for it, but other species might have called it fear. "This must be a misunderstanding," she said, though her tone lacked conviction. "Keep broadcasting our peaceful intentions. Tell the colony ships to offer no resistance. They're not responding to any communication, Captain, Teal said. And now they're changing course. 3 of the large vessels are heading directly toward us. Lori made a decision. Send the emergency distress signal to Commonwealth Central. Include all sensor data on the intruders. Teal worked frantically at his console. Signal prepared according to Commonwealth emergency protocols, Captain. On the view screen, the angular ships grew larger. The Gentle Dawn had no weapons, no meaningful shields beyond radiation protection, and no way to defend itself. The ship's fastest speed would not outrun the approaching vessels. Their only hope was that Commonwealth peacekeepers would arrive. Quickly, send it now, Lori commanded, watching as the first of the unknown vessels began to launch smaller craft toward them. Signal sent, Teal confirmed. He frowned at his display. Captain, there's something wrong with the transmission. The acknowledgement came back on a frequency I've never seen. And the response code? It's not Commonwealth format. What does that mean? Lori asked, the cold feeling in her chest growing stronger. I think, Teal hesitated, I think our signal was misrouted. These coordinates in the response, they're from uncharted space, from the direction of the dead zone. The dead zone. Every Novali child knew about it, the region of space containing the notorious Deathworlds, planets so harsh and unforgiving that they spawned aggressive predatory species. The Commonwealth had cordoned off the entire sector centuries ago, deeming any intelligence arising there too dangerous to contact. The most terrifying stories told to young Novali were of the theoretical Deathworlders, beings evolved under constant threat with bodies built for violence and minds shaped by endless struggle. The Commonwealth's greatest fear was that such beings might one day develop spaceflight and bring their violent ways to the peaceful stars. Recall the signal, Lori ordered quickly. Redirect it to Commonwealth Central. I can't, Teal whispered. It's already been received, by someone or something in the dead zone. A new message appeared on Teal's console. Simple, direct, in mathematical code that translated across language barriers. Distress signal received. Coordinates confirmed. Hold position. Response inbound. Who would respond from the dead zone? Maury asked, his voice barely audible. Lori had no answer. She watched the approaching ships, now close enough to see the scorch marks on their hulls and the strange symbols painted on their sides. The Novali had no concept of pirates, but that's what they were facing. The Veklar, scavengers of the outer systems who preyed on isolated colonies. Captain, Teal said, the colony ships report borders. They're taking our people. Lori closed, her eyes briefly. The Commonwealth would send ships eventually, but they would arrive too late for the colonists. And now, because of a misrouted distress call, they might have accidentally alerted something even worse than these attackers. Something from the dead zone was coming, and the Novali could only wait, caught between two unknowns, both potentially deadly to a species that had never learned to fight. Admiral Jack Thompson was having a normal day aboard the UES Defender, flagship of the United Earth Fleet. At 53 years old, with gray hair at his temples and deep lines around his eyes, he had seen most of what space had to offer. 29. Years in the fleet had prepared him for almost anything. Almost. Sir, called Lieutenant Ross from the communication station. We've intercepted an unusual transmission. It appears to be a distress call. Thompson looked up from the personnel reports. He had been reviewing. Origin? Approximately 40 light-years sunward of the Arcturus line, sir, near the boundary of what we call the Silent Zone. The Silent Zone. Every space cadet knew about it, a vast region of space from which no signals ever came, despite clear evidence of activity. Long-range scanners had detected ship movements and energy signatures for decades, but never any communication directed toward human space. Humanity had sent hundreds of greeting messages toward the Silent Zone without response, eventually establishing the Arcturus line as a boundary they would not cross without invitation. Show me, Thompson ordered. The main screen lit up with data streaming across it. The message used an encoding system Thompson had never seen before, but the mathematics of distress were clear. The signal included sensor readings, Visual data, showing sleek white ships being attacked by angular predatory vessels. Translation? Thompson asked. Lieutenant Ross shook his head. Our computers are working on it, sir. The language is unknown, but the mathematical pattern indicating distress is universal. What's strange is that this signal wasn't directed at us. It appears to have been misrouted through a subspace channel intersection. It was meant for someone else. Thompson stood and moved closer to the screen, studying the visual data. The white ships were clearly civilian in design. No visible weapons, minimal shielding. The attacking vessels were another matter. Their design suggested a purpose built around aggression. The visuals show civilians under attack, Thompson said quietly. How long would it take us to reach these coordinates? The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the implication of the question. These coordinates were beyond the Arcturus line, in the silent zone they had pledged not to enter. Lieutenant Commander Banks, the tactical officer, cleared his throat. At maximum FTL, just under 18 hours, sir. Thompson's eyes never left the screen, where the image showed smaller craft leaving the attacking vessels and forcing their way into the white ships. Sir, Ross said hesitantly, protocol dictates that we report this to Fleet Command for evaluation. Crossing the Arcturus line would require authorization from the Security Council. Thompson turned to face his bridge crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. Humanity had evolved on Earth, a world of predators, natural disasters, and harsh climates. They had survived by developing two critical traits, the ability to fight when necessary, and the drive to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Lieutenant Ross, send our acknowledgement to the distress call. Let them know help is coming. Yes, sir, Ross said, fingers moving over his console. Commander Banks, plot a course to these coordinates, maximum FTL. Thompson's voice was calm, but firm. And contact all combat-ready vessels within 2 light years. I want them converging on these coordinates immediately. Banks nodded, but hesitation showed on his face. Sir, the Arcturus line. These people need help, Thompson said simply. They've asked for it, even if by accident. That's all the invitation we need. He turned to his executive officer, Commander Diana Reed. Contact Fleet Command. Inform them that we've received a distress call from beyond the Arcturus line and are responding according to Maritime Rescue Protocol. Tell them I take full responsibility. Reed nodded sharply. Yes, sir. Maritime Rescue Protocol was as old as seafaring itself. The obligation to respond to a distress call, regardless of nationality or standing. When humanity reached space, they had carried this principle with them. To ignore a call for help was unthinkable. Sir, Ross called out, I've analyzed the sensor data attached to the distress call. The attacking vessels match no known configuration, but their behavior shows a clear pattern of boarding and capture, not destruction. They appear to be taking captives. Thompson's expression darkened. Humanity's history included the dark chapter of slavery. The thought of any species being captured and enslaved stirred something primal in the human psyche. All the more reason to hurry, he said. How many ships can we get there within 24 hours? Banks consulted his tactical display. The Montana and Hiroshima can rendezvous with us in 4 hours. The Beijing, Cairo, and New Delhi can meet us at the target coordinates. That gives us 6 heavy cruisers, including the Defender. Good. That should be enough to handle those raiders. Thompson returned to his command chair. All hands to battle. Stations. Prepare for maximum FTL. The bridge erupted into activity as the crew prepared the ship for rapid acceleration. Thompson kept his eyes on the main screen, which still showed the final frame of the distress call. A white ship surrounded by the angular predatory vessels. Humanity had spent centuries wondering about the silent zone and why its inhabitants never responded to Earth's greetings. Perhaps they had been monitoring human broadcasts, learning about Earth's violent history, and decided that humans were too dangerous to contact. Many species might look at Earth's past and see only the warfare, the conquest, the bloodshed. What they missed, Thompson thought, was the other side of human nature, the drive to protect, to help, to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. FTL drive ready, sir, reported the helmsman. Execute, Thompson ordered. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines as the Defender accelerated to faster than light speed, heading toward the silent zone. 18 hours. That's how long the people who sent the distress call would have. To hold out, Thompson hoped it would be enough. Lieutenant Ross, he said, prepare a first contact package. Standard greetings in all Earth languages, mathematical principles, basic scientific data. If we're finally meeting our neighbors, let's put our best foot forward. Yes, sir, Ross replied. And Ross, Thompson added, include the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Let's make sure they understand exactly what we stand for. As the ship hurtled through space, Thompson thought about those white ships and the people inside them. They had never met humans before. They probably knew nothing about Earth or its people. Their first impression of humanity would be formed by what happened next. Thompson intended to make it a good one. Commander Reed, he said, have the fleet prepare boarding teams. Full tactical gear, but I want strict fire discipline. We're there to rescue hostages, not start a war. Reed nodded. Rules of engagement, sir? Defensive fire only until all civilians are secure, Thompson said firmly. Then we give the raiders one chance to surrender. And if they refuse? Thompson's expression was grim but determined. Then we show them exactly why Earth is called a death world. The Veklar pirate chief Dreth stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Bloodfang. His gray-scaled skin gleamed under the red lights of the bridge. Sharp teeth showed when he smiled, watching the Novali colonists being herded into holding cells on his view screen. The Veklar had discovered the Novali colony 3 days ago. It was perfect prey, wealthy, advanced, and completely defenseless. The raid was going better than expected. No weapons, no resistance, just pure profit. Novali brought good prices in the Outer Rim slave markets. Their 4 arms made them excellent. Workers and their gentle nature made them easy to control. Chief, called his sensor officer, I'm detecting gravitational disturbances at the edge of the system. Dreth's smile widened. More Commonwealth ships coming to help their friends? Good. More prizes. The Commonwealth was known throughout the unregulated sectors as easy targets. Their ships carried valuable technology but no weapons. In 20 years of raiding, Dreth had never faced armed resistance from them. His smile faded as the sensor officer spoke again. These are not Commonwealth signatures, Chief. The distortion pattern is unknown. Dreth moved to the sensor station, pushing the officer aside to see for himself. The readings made no sense. The energy output was massive, far beyond anything the Commonwealth used. How many vessels? He demanded. 6 detected so far. Large ships, Chief. Before Dreth could respond, space seemed to tear open at the system's edge. 6 vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel, unlike any ships Dreth had seen in his long career as a pirate. They were dark gray, almost black, with angular designs that somehow reminded Dreth of the Bloodfang itself, built for function, rather than beauty. But unlike his ship, these vessels were enormous, almost twice the size of his largest cruiser. Most concerning were the obvious weapon ports along their hulls, dozens of them, far more than Dreth's entire fleet carried. Unknown vessels, came a transmission in perfect galactic standard. This is Admiral Thompson of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You're engaged in hostile actions against civilians. Stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded or we will open fire. Earth? Dreth had never heard of such a place or people. He turned to his communication officer. Where did they come from? How do they know our language? The officer was frantically checking his equipment. They're broadcasting in over 50 different languages simultaneously. Galactic Standard is just one of them. Dreth studied the ships on his screen. Their design spoke of a culture familiar with warfare, but their message suggested something else. They had come in response to the distress call, not to raid. Defenders, not predators like the Veklar. It didn't matter. No one challenged the Veklar pirates and lived. Target their lead ship, Dreth ordered. Full power to main cannons. Show them what happens to those who interfere with the Veklar. His weapons officer hesitated. Chief, their ships are heavily armed. Perhaps we should... Fire! Dreth snarled. showing all of his sharp teeth. The Bloodfang's main cannons fired, sending brilliant red energy beams toward the largest of the unknown vessels. These weapons had sliced through Commonwealth ships like paper in past raids. The beams struck the human flagship and dissipated across a blue energy field that flickered but held firm. Shields. Real energy shields, not the weak radiation barriers the Commonwealth used. "That was your warning," came the human's voice again, calm and emotionless. "This is our response." What followed was not warfare as the Veklar understood it. The 6 human ships moved with precision that suggested extensive combat experience. Their weapons were nothing like the Veklar's energy cannons. Instead, they fired physical projectiles at incredible speeds, targeting engines and weapon emplacements with surgical accuracy. On the Bloodfang's bridge, alarm sounded as systems began to fail. "Engines hit," shouted the engineering officer. "Weapon systems down." Dreth watched in disbelief as 2 of his support ships exploded, broken apart by the human weapons. 3 more were drifting, clearly disabled. "Retreat," Dreth ordered. "All ships, emergency jump to light speed." His navigation officer looked up, with fear in his yellow eyes. "We can't, Chief. Our hyperspace drive is being jammed somehow." For the first time in his long career of piracy, Dreth felt fear crawl up his spine. These strangers fought with a cold efficiency he had never witnessed. No wasted energy, no dramatic maneuvers or battle cries, just methodical, precise destruction. "Chief," his communication officer said. "They're hailing us again." The human admiral's face appeared on the screen. Dreth studied the alien carefully. The being had no scales, just bare skin except for patches of hair. Its eyes were forward-facing, like a predator's, but showed no excitement or bloodlust, just calm determination. "Veklar vessels," the human said. "Your ships are disabled. Your weapons are offline. Surrender and release your prisoners, or we will have no choice but to destroy you." Dreth hissed. "Who are you to make demands? What is this, Earth? Why do you interfere in matters that don't concern you?" The human's expression didn't change. "We received a distress call from the beings you are attacking. On Earth we have a strict code. When someone asks for help, we provide it. You are holding innocent civilians against their will. Release them, and you may keep your lives." "And if I refuse?" Dreth challenged. The human's expression hardened slightly. "Then you will see why the universe has kept our world separate until now." Meanwhile, on the Novali ship Gentle Dawn, Captain Lori and her crew watched the battle with a mixture of horror and wonder. "I've never seen such violence," whispered Teal, the communication officer. His blue skin had turned nearly white with shock. Lori couldn't disagree. The Novali had no concept for the precise destruction they were witnessing. These newcomers, these humans, fought with terrible efficiency. Yet they had come to help, not to conquer. "Captain," Teal said suddenly, "we're being hailed by the human flagship." Lori straightened her uniform. On screen, the face that appeared was the same one that had spoken to the Veklar pirate. Up close, Lori could see more details. Skin that showed signs of age, eyes with small wrinkles around them, short gray and black hair. "Captain of the White Vessel," the human said. "I am Admiral Thompson of Earth. Are you and your people unharmed?" Lori found her voice. "I am Captain Lori of the Novali exploration ship Gentle Dawn. We are mostly unharmed, though the colony ships report many taken by the raiders." The human nodded. "We are securing the raider vessels now and will rescue all captives. Do you require medical assistance? We have doctors prepared to treat injured." "You responded to our distress call?" Lori asked, still struggling to understand. "Yes. It appears your signal was routed into our space by accident." The human's expression softened slightly. "We came as quickly as we could. But you crossed the dead zone to help us," Lori said, unable to hide her confusion. "Your weapons, your ships. You're from a death world, aren't you?" The human's eyebrows rose slightly. "Is that what you call them?" "Yes. Earth would qualify as what you term a death world. But we don't consider ourselves dead. Quite the opposite. We are very much alive, Captain Lori, and we believe all life deserves protection." As Lori processed this unexpected statement, she realized that everything the Commonwealth thought it knew about Deathworlders might be wrong. These humans had not brought violence to the stars. They had brought justice. 3 days after the battle, Captain Lori stood in the observation lounge of the human flagship, the UES Defender. Through the large window, she could see her own ship, the Gentle Dawn, looking small and delicate next to the massive human vessel. "Your ship is beautiful," said Admiral Thompson, who stood beside her. "The design is elegant." Lori turned to look at the human. In the past 3 days, she had learned to read their expressions a little better. This one seemed genuine, appreciation, not mockery. "Thank you," she said. "Though after seeing what happened to the Veklar ships, I now understand why you build your vessels differently." Thompson smiled slightly. "Form follows function, Captain. Our ships are built to survive. Yours are built for a universe where survival isn't constantly threatened." That was the heart of it, Lori realized. Everything about humans, from their ships to their bodies, was designed for survival in harsh conditions. The Novali had evolved in paradise, and it showed in everything they created. A human crew member entered the lounge and approached Thompson, handing him a datapad. "The final report, sir." Thompson nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant." He turned to Lori. "Good news, Captain. All of your people have been rescued from the Veklar ships. Medical teams report only minor injuries. They'll be transferred back to your colony vessels within the hour." Lori felt a wave of relief wash over her. All 4 of her hands clasped together in the Novali gesture of gratitude. "Thank you, Admiral. The Novali owe you a debt we can never repay." "There is no debt," Thompson said simply. "We would have done the same for anyone." Lori found this hard to believe. "You crossed a boundary your people have respected for decades, risked your ships and crews, and fought a battle against a species you'd never encountered before. All for strangers." Thompson seemed to consider this. "May I show you something, Captain?" He led her to another part of the ship, a large room filled with humans in various outfits. Some wore the dark uniforms of the ship's crew, while others were dressed in what Lori now knew were civilian clothes. They were gathered around tables, talking with several of the rescued Novali colonists. "What is this?" Lori asked. "Cultural exchange," Thompson explained. "My crew is off duty, meeting your people, learning about each other. It was entirely their idea." Lori watched as humans and Novali awkwardly but enthusiastically tried to communicate. The humans seemed fascinated by the Novali's forearms, while the Novali were equally interested in the human's hair, something no Commonwealth species possessed. "They're not afraid of us," Lori observed, "even after seeing what your weapons can do." "Should they be?" Thompson asked. "The Commonwealth has always taught that Deathworlders would be inherently aggressive," Lori admitted. "That's why we established the Dead Zone, to keep species like yours separate from the galactic community." Thompson's expression showed surprise. "You created that boundary? We always thought whoever lived on the other side wanted nothing to do with us." Lori felt shame creep into her heart. For centuries, the Commonwealth had cordoned off entire regions of space out of fear, never once attempting contact with the species they assumed would be too dangerous. "We were wrong," she said simply. "Perhaps," Thompson suggested, "this is an opportunity for both our peoples to learn." They continued watching the cultural exchange taking place. A young Novali was showing a group of humans how to write their name in Novali script, using all 4 hands simultaneously. Nearby, a human was demonstrating how to tie different knots with rope, something the 4-armed Novali picked up with remarkable speed. "Admiral," Lori said after a while, "what will happen to the Veklar pirates?" Thompson's face hardened slightly. "They've been contained. Once we return to Earth space, they'll face trial for their crimes. We have strict laws against slavery and piracy." "Not execution?" Lori was surprised. "No. We stopped executing prisoners centuries ago." Thompson looked thoughtful. "Our history is not peaceful, Captain. Humans fought each other for thousands of years before we reached the stars. We've made terrible mistakes, but we've learned from them. This was not what Lori expected from a Deathworlder species." "You're very complex." Thompson laughed. "Yes, I suppose we are. A human officer approached them. "Admiral, the Commonwealth vessels have been detected entering the system. They're requesting communication." Thompson nodded. "Put them through to the main screen in the, command center." He turned to Lori. "It seems your people have finally arrived." In the command center, a large screen showed the face of a Navali much older than Lori. He wore the elaborate collar of a Commonwealth fleet commander, though the word fleet was somewhat misleading, as the Commonwealth had no true warships. "This is Fleet Commander Toril of the Commonwealth Peacekeeping Force, the Navali said. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves and explain your presence in this system." Thompson stepped forward. "Fleet Commander, I am Admiral Jack Thompson of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We responded to a distress call from the Navali ship Gentle Dawn. Captain Lori is here with me." The commander's eyes widened when he saw Lori. "Captain, are you being held against your will?" "No, Commander," Lori said quickly. "The humans came to our rescue. The Veklar pirates had attacked our colony ships and taken many prisoners. The humans defeated the pirates and rescued all our people." Toril looked confused. "Humans? From beyond the dead zone? And they helped you?" "Yes," Lori said firmly. "Everything we thought we knew about Deathworlders is wrong, Commander. These humans risked their lives to save ours." The commander seemed unable to process this information. "But their ships, they're clearly designed for warfare." "Yes," Thompson said calmly. "Earth is a harsh world by your standards. We evolved alongside predators and through natural disasters. We learned to fight to survive, but we also learned to protect those who cannot protect themselves." There was a long silence as Commander Toril digested this. Finally, he said, "The Commonwealth Council will want to meet with you, Admiral Thompson." "We would be honored," Thompson replied. "Perhaps this accidental meeting can be the beginning of a new relationship between our peoples." After the communication ended, Lori turned to Thompson. "The Council will be afraid of you," she warned. "They feared Deathworlders for centuries," Thompson smiled. "Then we'll just have to show them there's nothing to fear, unless they're pirates, of course." Later, back in the observation lounge, Lori and Thompson stood side by side watching. As Commonwealth ships began arriving in the system, they were large and elegant, but like the Gentle Dawn, they carried no weapons. "Your people will need to change," Thompson said quietly. "The galaxy is not as peaceful as you believed. The Veklar won't be the last threat you face." "We don't know how to fight," Lori admitted. "We never learned." Thompson turned to face her. "Perhaps that's what our peoples can offer each other. You can teach us about building a truly peaceful society, and we can teach you how to defend that peace when necessary." Lori considered this. The Commonwealth had survived for millennia through cooperation and diplomacy, but now they knew that there were species like the Veklar who saw their peaceful nature not as enlightenment, but as weakness. "I think," she said slowly, "that would be a fair exchange." 1 month after the Veklar attack, the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Commonwealth buzzed with tense energy. The massive room, designed for calm debate among peaceful species, now hosted the most controversial meeting in Commonwealth history. At the center of the chamber stood Captain Lori and Admiral Thompson, an odd pair, the small blue-skinned Navali with 4 arms beside the taller, more solidly built human with only 2. Around them, in rising tiers of seats, sat representatives of all 47 Commonwealth species. Most had never seen a human before, and many watched with clear unease. The High Chancellor, an elderly krill with translucent skin that glowed softly, raised his hands for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. "This special session of the Commonwealth Grand Council is now in session," he announced, his voice amplified throughout the room. "We are here to discuss the events in the Navali colony system and the unexpected intervention of the humans from Earth." The way he said humans made it clear he was uncomfortable with their presence. "Admiral Thompson," the Chancellor continued, "you claim your fleet violated our boundary without malicious intent." "With respect, Chancellor," Thompson replied calmly, "we were unaware of any boundary. We received a distress call, identified it as beings under attack, and responded as any civilized people would. A counselor from the back of the chamber stood, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been a sneer. "But your weapons," he hissed. "Your combat capabilities. They are beyond anything in our records. You destroyed 5 Veklar ships in minutes." "We disabled 5 ships," Thompson corrected politely. "We destroyed only 2, and only after they refused to stop firing on our vessels." "The point remains," said another counselor, a being with feathery skin and large eyes. "Your species clearly evolved for violence. The Commonwealth has maintained peace for thousands of years by keeping Deathworlders isolated." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Lori glanced at Thompson, seeing his calm expression unchanged despite the open hostility. "May I speak, Chancellor?" Lori asked. The Chancellor nodded. "The Council recognizes Captain Lori, whose distress call began these events." Lori stepped forward, her 4 hands clasped before her in the formal gesture of truth-speaking. "Members of the Council, I understand your fears. 1 month ago I shared them. We have all been taught that species from harsh worlds would be inherently aggressive and dangerous." She paused, looking around the chamber. "We were wrong." The chamber erupted, in whispers and exclamations. Lori waited for them to subside before continuing. "The humans crossed what they did not know was a boundary to save those they had never met. They risked their lives for strangers. Is this not the highest principle of the Commonwealth?" "They used violence," objected a counselor. "They used force." "To stop violence," Lori countered. "There is a difference. While the Commonwealth debate would have raged for days, my people were being taken as slaves. The humans acted. Without them, the colonists would now be suffering in some outer rim slave market." The Chancellor's skin pulsed with color, a sign of deep thought among the krill. "Admiral Thompson, what does Earth want from the Commonwealth? Why are you here today?" Thompson stepped forward. "Chancellor, members of the Council, Earth wants what we believe you want: peace, prosperity, and security for all sentient beings. We're here today because an accident of subspace communication gave us the opportunity to finally meet our neighbors." "And your weapons?" asked another counselor. "Your combat ships? Because we needed them to survive," Thompson said simply. "Earth is indeed harsh by your standards. We evolved alongside predators, through ice ages and natural disasters. We learned to fight to survive, yes, but also to cooperate, to protect those who cannot protect themselves." He gestured to the chamber around them. "Your Commonwealth has survived for millennia through peaceful cooperation. That is admirable. But as the Veklar proved, not everyone in the galaxy shares your values. There are predators among the stars. What will you do when they come for you?" Silence fell over the chamber. This was a question the Commonwealth had never wanted to face. An older Novali counselor stood slowly. "For 3,000 years, the Commonwealth has believed that intelligence and violence are opposing forces, that truly advanced beings outgrow the need for conflict. Yet here stand the humans, clearly intelligent, clearly advanced, and clearly capable of both violence and compassion." She looked directly at Thompson. "Perhaps we have been wrong all this time." The debate continued for hours. Some counselors argued for maintaining the isolation of Earth, fearing what contact with a Deathworld species might bring. Others, led by the Novali delegation, argued that the humans had proven themselves worthy allies. In the end, after days of debate, the ANOP vote was taken. By a narrow margin, the Commonwealth approved the Arcturus Accords, the first formal alliance between the Galactic Commonwealth and the United Earth Government. The terms were simple. The humans would provide protection against threats like the Veklar, while the Commonwealth would share their advances in medicine, sustainable energy, and faster-than-light travel. 1 week after the vote, Lori found herself standing beside Admiral Thompson on the observation deck of the Gentle Dawn, watching as human and Commonwealth ships practiced joint maneuvers. "Your people still fear us," Thompson observed. "Some do," Lori admitted. "But they'll learn. What you call a death world created strengths we lack, and perhaps what the galaxy truly needs is balance, our peaceful cooperation, and your protective instincts combined." Thompson smiled. "On Earth, we have an old saying, speak softly, and carry a big stick. It means, I understand, Lori interrupted with a smile of her own. Be peaceful, but be prepared to defend that peace. Perhaps our peoples are not so different after all. 2 months later, a new Veklar raid force entered a Commonwealth system, targeting an undefended research outpost. They expected easy prey, as always. What they found instead were 3 human warships in orbit, their weapons primed and ready. The Veklar turned and fled. Word spread quickly through the darker corners of the galaxy. The Commonwealth was no longer undefended. They had found unlikely allies, beings from the harsh worlds beyond the dead zone, who fought with terrible efficiency but only to protect. In the Commonwealth Grand Council, the High Chancellor reviewed reports of 3 similar incidents, all with the same outcome: potential attackers retreating when faced with human ships. Perhaps, he said to his advisors, this is what true peace requires, not the absence of the ability to fight, but the wisdom to know when fighting is necessary. On Earth, the United Nations approved funding for a massive new shipbuilding program. Not warships this time, but ships designed for joint scientific missions with Commonwealth species. Excitement swept through human space as Commonwealth technology began to filter in, promising solutions to age-old problems of energy and medicine, all because a distress signal had been misrouted to the most dangerous sector of the galaxy, where the most dangerous species turned out to be the most willing to help. The vast meeting hall of the United Earth Council fell silent as the alien stepped forward. His blue skin shimmered under the bright lights, and his 4 arms moved in a pattern that suggested extreme worry. Ambassador Vin represented the Tellurian Alliance, a group of peaceful species that had mastered space travel long before humans. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Vin said. His translator device gave his words a slight metallic tone. My people face a threat unlike any we have seen before. Admiral Marcus, head of Earth's defense forces, studied the alien with careful eyes. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face marked by years of tough decisions. You've avoided Earth for decades. Why come to us now? Vin touched a small device on his wrist. A 3-dimensional image appeared in the center of the room, showing a beautiful green planet. Then the image changed. The same planet appeared black and lifeless, covered in what looked like dark moving clouds. This was Teller Prime, our most advanced colony, Vin explained. Home to 12 million of my people. This recording was taken 6 months ago. The council members leaned forward in their seats. The moving clouds on the planet seemed to eat everything they touched. What are we looking at? Asked Dr. Wilson, the council's science advisor. We call them the Void Swarm, Vin said. They appeared at the edge of our territory 1 year ago. They consume all organic matter. Nothing stops them. He touched his device again, showing more planets, all vibrant with life at first, then dead and covered in the same black swarm. 17 worlds lost already, Vin continued. His voice cracked with emotion. Our weapons barely slow them down. Our shields fail against their attacks. They learn and adapt too quickly. Admiral Marcus crossed his arms. And you think we can help? Your technology is far more advanced than ours. Vin's 4 hands came together in what humans had learned, was a gesture of deep respect. Technology is not everything, the alien said. Your species evolved on a world that should have killed you. Earth's gravity is crushing to most intelligent life. Your weather is violent. Your planet is filled with predators and diseases. By all logic, you should not exist. The council members exchanged looks. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. Most alien species they had encountered viewed humans with caution or outright fear. The universe calls you Deathworlders, Vin admitted. It is not a compliment. It is born from fear. But now we need what that harsh world gave you. Your strength, your adaptability, your willingness to fight. Admiral Marcus's eyes narrowed. You mean our violence? Vin did not deny it. My people evolved on worlds with stable climates and few dangers. We developed technology to solve problems. You developed the will to overcome them through force when necessary. The tension in the room grew. Captain Reed, commander of Earth's newest battleship, spoke up from his seat near the back. So now that you need someone to fight your war, you come to the savages you've been avoiding? Vin's upper arms dropped in what seemed like shame. We were wrong to avoid you, wrong to fear you, and now we pay the price for that fear. My people are dying. Dr. Wilson adjusted her glasses. These void swarm, what exactly are they? A collective organism, Vin explained. Billions of tiny parts working together as one mind. They learn from every encounter. They adapt to every weapon we use against them. Like an immune system, Dr. Wilson murmured. Yes, Vin agreed, but one that spans worlds. Admiral Marcus stood and walked to the hologram, studying the moving black mass. And what makes you think humans can defeat something your people can't? Because you think differently, Vin said simply. The swarm adapts to patterns. All our species follow patterns, logical, predictable responses. But humans, he gestured to the council members, you are chaos. You take risks no logical species would consider. You sacrifice the few to save the many. You change tactics when there is no logical reason to do so. The council members talked among themselves. Most seemed doubtful. We have limited ships, one member pointed out. Only 12 major warships capable of deep space combat. And no experience fighting these swarm things, another added. Admiral Marcus held up his hand for silence. Ambassador Vin, you understand. What you're asking? If we help you, we expect to be treated as equals in the future. No more avoiding Earth, no more Deathworlder talk behind our backs. Vin's four hands formed the respect gesture again. If you help us, there will be a future to discuss such things. If not, he let the thought hang unfinished. Captain Reed stood up. All eyes turned to him. Admiral, permission to speak freely? Marcus nodded. My father was on the first contact team, Reed said. The team that reached out to the Tellurian worlds 30 years ago. They were turned away, told humans were too dangerous to join the galactic community. His eyes fixed on Vin. I grew up hearing about that rejection, how it felt to be feared for what we are. Vin did not look away from Reed's hard stare. But my father also taught me something else, Reed continued. He said the measure of a species isn't how they treat their friends. It's how they treat those who've wronged them. The room went quiet. Reed straightened his uniform. The Dauntless is ready for deployment, Admiral. My crew and I volunteer. One by one, other military officers in the room stood up. Within moments, all were on their feet. Admiral Marcus turned back to Vin. It seems we have your answer, Ambassador. Thank you, Vin said, his voice thick with emotion. My people will not forget this. Make sure they don't, Marcus replied. Then he faced the standing officers. Prepare your ships. Captain Reed, the Dauntless, will lead the fleet. As the meeting ended, Reed approached Vin. The human captain and alien ambassador stood face to face. Why did you really choose humans? Reed asked quietly. The whole truth. Vin's four eyes blinked slowly. Because we searched our histories and found only one truth. When faced with extinction, species will try anything. You humans live your entire lives as if facing extinction. Every day on your deadly world prepared you for this moment. Reed nodded slowly. We'll leave orbit in 12 hours. Have your ships ready to guide us to the front lines. As Reed walked away, Vin called after him. Captain, what did your people call Earth before you knew of other worlds? Reed paused, looking back over his shoulder. Home, he said simply. Then he added with a small smile. We called our death world home. 12 hours later, Earth's fleet, humanity's answer to an alien plea, broke orbit and headed toward the stars. The massive human warship Dauntless moved through space like a metal shark, its dark hull reflecting little light. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, watching as the smaller, more colorful Tellurian ships approached. Their smooth, rounded designs made them look like bright fish next to the human vessel's angular armored frame. They're here, Lieutenant Gray announced from her station. She was a young officer with sharp eyes that missed nothing. 5 Tellurian ships as promised. Reed nodded, his face showing little emotion. Prepare to receive their officers. Ambassador, Vin will be joining our command team. The crew exchanged looks. Having aliens aboard a human warship was new to everyone. Sir, Gray said quietly, moving closer to Reed. The crew is nervous. These aliens avoided us for years. Now they want us to fight their war. Reed understood her concern. They're desperate, Lieutenant. Fear makes people do strange things, even aliens. He straightened his uniform. And right now, they fear the swarm more than they fear us. An hour later, Reed welcomed Vin and 4 other Tellurian officers to the Dauntless. The aliens moved carefully in Earth's standard gravity, their slender bodies struggling with the weight. Thank you for adjusting your gravity for our arrival, Vin said, his forearms moving in a grateful gesture. Even at 70% of Earth normal, it is challenging for us. Reed nodded. We'll keep this section at reduced gravity for your comfort. The rest of the ship remains at Earth normal. My crew needs to be at their best. Vin introduced his team, Trell, their tactical officer, Mira, their science specialist, and 2 others who would serve as liaisons. All had the same blue skin and 4 arms as Vin, though with subtle differences in height and face shape. Reed led them to the ship's war room, where large screens showed star maps and fleet positions. Science Officer Ellis was waiting for them. She was a brilliant woman, with calm eyes and steady hands that now worked quickly over the control panel. The Void Swarm was last seen in this system, Ellis explained, pointing to a star on the map. Based on their previous movement patterns, they will likely reach this inhabited world within 2 weeks. Trell, the Tellurian tactical officer, stepped forward with a data device. We have developed standard defense protocols for engaging the swarm. He transferred the information to the human systems. Ellis reviewed the Tellurian battle plans with growing concern. These tactics are very structured, very predictable. They follow optimal mathematical models, Trell explained proudly. That's the problem, Reed said, looking over Ellis's shoulder. If this swarm adapts as quickly as you say, predictable tactics are suicide. Trell's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. But battle requires order, coordination. Battle requires winning, Reed interrupted. And sometimes winning means doing the unexpected. The joint fleet traveled for 5 days toward the predicted swarm location. During this time, human and Tellurian crews tried to work together, but the differences were clear. In the ship's training room, Lieutenant Gray watched Tellurian officers practice their combat drills. Every movement was perfectly timed. Every action followed exact procedures. They moved like machines, Gray said to Ellis, who had joined her. No variation, no improvisation. Ellis nodded. Their entire society values order and logic. They evolved on worlds with few threats, so they never developed our instincts for unpredictable situations. No wonder they're losing to the swarm, Gray replied. Later that day, Reed called a meeting with all command staff, human and Tellurian. The mood was tense after several disagreements about approach strategy. We're getting nowhere, Reed said bluntly. We need to understand each other. Better before we face the enemy, Vin agreed. Perhaps we should begin by explaining our concerns more clearly. Trell, still unhappy about human tactics, spoke first. Your battle plans involve intentional sacrifices and unnecessary risks. You propose to split our forces when logic dictates we should concentrate our firepower. Reed leaned forward. The swarm expects you to concentrate your firepower. That's why they've beaten you 17 times. They adapt to patterns. We need to be unpredictable. But your plans guarantee losses. Mira, the Tellurian scientist, pointed out. Some ships will definitely be destroyed. Yes, Reed said simply. Some will, but not all. If we follow your patterns, we'll all die together. The Tellurians looked shocked. Ellis stepped in with a gentler approach. Your people and ours think differently, she explained. Humans evolved on a world where death was always near. Predators, disasters, disease. Surviving meant taking calculated risks, sometimes sacrificing for the greater good. You intentionally accept death, Vin said slowly. as if finally understanding something important. "We accept that it happens," Reed corrected. "We don't welcome it, but we're not paralyzed by fear of it either." The room went quiet as the aliens considered this. Finally, Vin spoke. "On my world, death rarely came suddenly. We lived long, peaceful lives. Perhaps this made us rigid in our thinking." He looked at his fellow Tellurians. "Perhaps this is why we are losing." Reed saw an opening. "Your technology is superior to ours in many ways. Combined with our tactical approach, we might have a chance." Trell still looked doubtful. "What you propose goes against all our training, all our beliefs about proper warfare." "With respect," Reed replied, "proper warfare is the kind you win. Everything else is just dying with good manners." This statement caused a strange rippling motion among the Tellurians that the humans realized was their version of surprised laughter. The tension in the room eased slightly. "Very well, Captain," Vin said. "We will try your human approach. What do you propose?" Reed activated the main screen showing his battle plan. "We hit them from multiple angles, unpredictable patterns, different weapon types. We probe for weaknesses, then exploit them." As he explained the details, the Tellurians gradually moved from shocked to interested. By the end, even Trell was asking thoughtful questions. "It goes against everything we know," Trell admitted. "But everything we know has failed against the swarm." As the meeting ended, Vin stayed behind with Reed. "Your people truly are remarkable, Captain," the ambassador said quietly. "We feared you because of your violence. We never understood it was part of your strength." Reed looked at the star map, at the worlds already lost to the swarm. "Violence is just a tool, Ambassador. Like any tool, its value depends on how you use it." He turned to face the alien. "And right now, we're going to use it to save your people. B." Next day, the combined fleet picked up the first signs of the Void Swarm. Dark, moving masses appeared on long-range sensors. The true test of the reluctant alliance was about to begin. "Void Swarm detected at the edge of the Proxima system," Lieutenant Gray announced, her voice steady despite the tension on the bridge. "Sensors show they've already begun consuming the outer colony on the fourth planet." Captain Reed moved to the main view screen, where the dark mass of the swarm appeared as a shifting black cloud against the stars. Even from this distance, they could see how it moved with strange purpose, parts flowing together like water, yet clearly controlled by a single mind. "They're beautiful," Science Officer Ellis whispered, then quickly added, "In a terrifying way, of course." Ambassador Vin, who stood nearby, looked shocked at her comment. "They've killed billions of my people. On Earth, many deadly things are beautiful," Reed explained. "Hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, predators. Beauty and danger often go together." The combined human Tellurian fleet held position at a safe distance, observing the enemy. 16 ships, total. 5 large human warships including the Dauntless, 7 smaller human attack vessels, and 4 Tellurian cruisers. "All ships report ready, Captain," Gray said. Reed nodded, his face showing no fear. "Begin attack pattern Hydra. Signal." "The fleet." Trell, the Tellurian tactical officer who had joined them on the bridge, looked confused. "Captain, shouldn't we first try to communicate with the swarm? Perhaps they can be reasoned with." "We tried that," Vin reminded him. "On 7 different worlds. They don't respond to any signals." Reed gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What we're about to send is the only message they'll understand." The human ships suddenly broke formation, each moving in a different direction at high speed. The Tellurian vessels hesitated for a moment, then followed their assigned human partners. Instead of attacking as one unit, the standard Tellurian approach, the fleet split into 8 pairs, each approaching from a different angle. "Weapons free," Reed ordered. "Each pair, use your assigned weapon type only." The bridge crew watched as the plan unfolded. 2 ships attacked with plasma cannons, their hot blue beams cutting into the swarm's mass. 2 others fired kinetic projectiles, basically large metal slugs moving at incredible speeds. The Dauntless and its Tellurian partner used the newest human weapon, gravity disruptors that created small artificial gravity wells. The remaining ships used energy weapons, explosive charges, and even one experimental ship that fired freezing beams to solidify parts of the swarm. The effect was immediate and surprising. The swarm, faced with 7 different types of attacks from 8 different directions, seemed to hesitate. Parts of it pulled away from various attacks, creating gaps in its defense. "It's working," Vin exclaimed, his forearms moving in excitement. "They can't adapt to so many different attacks at once." Reed nodded, but didn't celebrate. "Phase 1 is working. Get ready for Phase 2. They'll adapt quickly." His words proved true. Within 30 minutes, the swarm began forming protective shells against the different weapon types. The plasma beams stopped penetrating as deeply. The kinetic projectiles bounced off new, harder outer layers. "All ships execute maneuver shift," Reed ordered. Each pair of ships suddenly switched targets and weapons. Those that had been using plasma now fired kinetics, and vice versa. The ship using cold beams switched to explosives. Again, the swarm seemed confused, its defenses now wrong for the new attacks. But this advantage lasted only 20 minutes before the swarm adapted again. "Final phase," Reed said calmly. "All ships, prepare to execute retreat pattern Omega." Trell looked alarmed. "Retreat? We just started fighting." "Not retreat," Reed corrected. "Tactical withdrawal. There's a difference." The human ships suddenly pulled back, appearing to flee in disorder. The Tellurian vessels followed, though their crews clearly didn't understand the plan. The swarm, perhaps sensing victory, extended long tendrils after the fleeing ships. "They're following us as predicted," Gray reported, swarm tendrils extending approximately 80,000 kilometers from the main mass. Reed watched the tactical display, waiting for the right moment. "Now, all ships, drop drones, and jump to secondary positions." Each ship released several small, unmanned vessels and then quickly moved to new positions. The drones, pre-programmed with simple flight patterns, continued along the original retreat paths. The swarm, focused on these easier targets, didn't immediately notice the actual ships had moved. "Drones in position," Gray announced. "Ready to detonate on your command." Reed waited until the swarm tendrils had fully surrounded the drone ships. "Detonate." The drones exploded in a carefully planned sequence, creating a wave of spatial distortions that ripped through the extended swarm tendrils. Cut off from the main body, the tendrils dissolved into harmless particles. "Damage assessment?" Reed asked. Ellis studied her readings. "The swarm has lost approximately 40% of its total mass. The remaining mass is pulling back, reconsolidating around the colony world." For the first time, the Tellurians on the bridge looked truly amazed. Vin turned to Reed with all 4 eyes wide. "You damaged them? Actually damaged them?" His voice held wonder. "We've never managed to cause more than minor injuries before." Reed checked the casualty reports from the fleet. "We lost 12 drones. No actual ships destroyed, though 3 have moderate damage." He allowed himself a small smile. "For a first encounter, I'd call that a win." Trell stared at the tactical display. "You sacrificed those vessels intentionally. You planned for them to be destroyed." "Unmanned drones," Reed clarified. "No lives lost. And yes, it was planned." "But the cost," Trell began, "is far less than losing an entire planet." Reed finished for him. "Sometimes you sacrifice the few to save the many." The Tellurians discussed this concept among themselves in their own language, clearly struggling with the idea. Meanwhile, Reed called a meeting of the human ship captains to discuss the next steps. "The swarm is learning our tricks already," he told them. "Next time will be harder. We need new tactics, new approaches." Ellis, who had been analyzing the swarm's response patterns, spoke up. "They adapt to our technology quickly, but they seemed most confused by our unpredictable movements and decisions. I think their weakness isn't in their physical form. It's in their thinking." "A hive mind expects patterns," Reed agreed. "It expects logical responses. We need to be even more unpredictable next time." When the meeting ended, Reed found Vin waiting for him in the corridor. "My people have fought the swarm for over a year," the ambassador said. "We never inflicted damage like you did today. Not once. Reed leaned against the wall, suddenly looking tired. Today was just the beginning. The swarm will be ready for these tactics next time. But you'll have new tactics, Vin said. Not as a question, but as a statement. Reed nodded. Always. That's what humans do. We adapt, we change, we survive. He straightened up. Get some rest, Ambassador. Tomorrow we start planning the next attack. As Reed walked away, Vin spoke again. I used to fear what humanity might become if you ever joined the Galactic community. Now I fear what will happen if you don't. Reed paused, but didn't turn around. We'll save your people, Ambassador. That's what we came to do. And after? Vin asked quietly. This time Reed did look back. After we win, we'll talk about what comes next. Both our peoples have a lot to learn from each other. The damaged swarm continued to consume the colony, whirled but slower now, as if finally aware that a real threat had arrived. The battle for the stars had truly begun. 3 months had passed since the first battle with the Void Swarm. In that time, the combined human-Tellurian fleet had fought 7 major engagements across 5 star systems. They had prevented the swarm from consuming any more planets, but they hadn't been able to destroy it completely. Captain Reed stood in the war room aboard the Dauntless, studying the latest movements of the swarm on the large tactical display. The once formless black mass now showed clear patterns of organization. It moved with purpose, splitting and rejoining in ways that suggested planning rather than simple reaction. They're becoming more like us, Reed said to Ellis and Gray, who stood nearby. More unpredictable, more innovative. And we're becoming more like them, Ellis added. More connected, more coordinated. It was true. The human ships now moved with a precision that would have made the Tellurians proud 3 months ago. The Tellurian ships, meanwhile, had started using more creative, unpredictable tactics. Ambassador Vin entered the war room, followed by Trell. Both aliens moved with more confidence in the ship's gravity now, their bodies having adapted somewhat to the heavier pull. The swarm has changed direction again, Vin announced. They've abandoned their attack on Teller Secondary and appear to be heading toward the Proxima mining outpost. Reed frowned. That makes no strategic sense. The mining outpost has fewer resources, less organic matter to consume. Why change targets? Because they know we'll defend wherever they attack, Gray suggested. They're not just choosing targets based on food anymore. They're choosing based on our likely response. The realization hit everyone at the same time. The swarm wasn't just adapting to their weapons and tactics. It was learning to think strategically. Reed called a meeting of all ship captains, both human and Tellurian. As they gathered, either in person or via holographic projection, the mood was serious. The initial excitement of their early successes had faded into the grim reality of a prolonged war. We've been fighting the swarm for 3 months, Reed began. We've stopped their advance, but we haven't defeated them. Each engagement gets harder as they adapt to our tactics. Captain Miller of the human ship Valiant spoke up. My engineers can barely keep up with the weapons modifications. As soon as we find something that works, the swarm develops a counter. It's the same with our shields, added Captain Kress of the Tellurian cruiser Light of Dawn. They find new frequencies to penetrate our defenses within hours. Reed nodded. We're missing something important. The swarm shows almost instantaneous adaptation across vast distances. Even when we split their forces, separated parts still adapt in the same ways at the same time. Ellis, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. That suggests some form of faster-than-light communication between all parts of the swarm. No matter how far apart they are, they function as one organism. Our scientists theorized quantum entanglement might be involved, Vin said. But we never located a central node or control point. The discussion continued for hours as they reviewed data from every encounter with the swarm. They examined every adaptation, every strategic shift, looking for patterns or weaknesses they might have missed. Lieutenant Gray, who had been silent during most of the meeting, suddenly spoke up. What if we're thinking too much like them now? All eyes turned to her. The Tellurians tried to outthink the swarm and failed, she continued. We succeeded initially because we were unpredictably human, but now we're falling into patterns again. Different, Patterns, but still patterns the swarm can learn. Reed raised an eyebrow. Go on, Lieutenant. The swarm adapts to anything it can analyze and understand, Gray said. What's the most human thing we could do? Something no logical hive mind would expect? The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. We need to introduce pure chaos into their system, Ellis said slowly, understanding dawning. Not just tactical chaos, but something deeper, something that disrupts their ability to communicate and coordinate. Over the next few days, a plan emerged, audacious and dangerous. A single ship would carry a small team directly into the heart of the swarm with a special payload designed by Ellis. We'll use the Firefly, Reed decided, referring to the smallest, fastest ship in the human fleet. Its stealth systems might let us get close enough. When he announced that he would personally lead the mission, protests erupted from both humans and Tellurians. Captain, you can't go, Gray argued. The fleet needs you. The fleet has other capable commanders, Reed replied. This mission needs someone who truly understands human unpredictability. He looked around the room. This is our best chance to end the war before we lose more ships and lives. Vin approached Reed after the meeting. Your plan has a high probability of failure, the ambassador said bluntly. Why risk your life when you could send others? Reed smiled slightly. That's still the difference between us, Ambassador. Humans don't ask others to take risks we wouldn't take ourselves, especially not when the stakes are this high. I do not understand this aspect of humanity, Vin admitted. Your willingness to run toward danger rather than away from it. It's who we are, Reed said simply. It's how we survived on Earth. We face threats head-on. The Firefly was prepared for its dangerous mission. Ellis installed her special device, not a conventional weapon, but a quantum transmitter unlike anything either humans or Tellurians had built before. It won't destroy the swarm physically, she explained to the small crew that would accompany Reed. Instead, it will introduce something the swarm has never encountered and can't adapt to quickly. What is that? Asked the Firefly's pilot, a steady-handed woman named Patel. Ellis smiled. Human art, music, specifically, encoded with mathematical paradoxes and patterns derived from Earth's most chaotic natural systems, weather patterns, earthquake data, even brainwave patterns from human dreams. Gray, who had insisted on joining the mission despite Reed's objections, looked skeptical. We're going to defeat a planet-eating swarm with music? Not just music, Ellis corrected. Think of it as introducing a virus into their communication network. The swarm expects logical patterns it can analyze and counter. This contains patterns that seem ordered but actually break down into chaos under analysis. Like humanity itself, Reed said with a hint of pride. Seemingly logical on the surface, but with an underlying unpredictability that defies simple analysis. As the day of the mission approached, tension grew throughout the fleet. Everyone understood the stakes. If Reed's team failed, the war would continue, wearing down their resources and resolve until eventual defeat became inevitable. The night before the mission, Reed found Vin on the observation deck staring out at the stars. Your people are remarkable, the ambassador said without turning. 3 months ago, I thought we were doomed. Now at least we have hope. We'll succeed tomorrow, Reed promised. Vin finally turned to face him. Whether you succeed or fail, you have taught the Tellurian Alliance an important lesson, one we should have learned long ago. What's that? Reed asked. That progress comes from embracing differences, not fearing them, Vin said. We feared humanity's unpredictability, your capacity for violence. Now those very traits may save us all. Reed nodded, looking back out at the stars where somewhere the swarm waited. Tomorrow we find out if being human is enough. The Firefly moved silently through space, its advanced stealth systems hiding it from the Void Swarm's senses. Captain Reed sat in the command chair, watching the main screen as they approached the massive black cloud that had destroyed so many worlds. Stealth systems holding, Pilot Patel reported, her hands steady on the controls despite the danger. The swarm shows no sign of detecting us. Lieutenant Gray monitored the tactical display. We're 15 minutes from the calculated center point. Reed nodded. The plan was simple but incredibly dangerous. Fly directly into the heart of the swarm, activate Ellis's device, and escape before the swarm could react. Simple to explain, nearly impossible to execute. "How's our device?" Reed asked, turning to Ellis. The science officer checked her readings. "Ready and stable. The quantum matrices are aligned perfectly." Her voice held a mix of scientific pride and very human nervousness. Reed looked at his small crew, just 4 people on a mission that might save billions of lives. Each face showed determination despite the fear they all surely felt. "Remember," Reed said, "we only get one chance at this. If it works, we've saved the Tellurian worlds. If not..." He left the thought unfinished. Everyone knew the stakes. As the Firefly moved deeper into the swarm, tiny black particles began to brush against the hull. Through the viewports, they could see the shifting patterns of the creature, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "It's like flying through a living storm," Patel whispered. The deeper they went, the thicker the swarm became. Soon the particles were no longer just brushing the ship but actively touching it, testing it. "They're probing us," Gray warned. "Our stealth won't last much longer?" Ellis studied her sensors with growing excitement. "I'm detecting unusual energy patterns ahead. Some kind of concentration point. A nexus." On the main screen they could see it, a pulsing structure unlike the rest of the swarm. While most of the black mass flowed like liquid, this part had a more solid form, throbbing with energy that their sensors could barely measure. "That has to be it," Reed said. "The control node our Tellurian friends could never find. Patel, take us closer." The ship shuddered as the swarm began to react more aggressively to their presence. Alarms sounded as the hull integrity sensors registered. "Increasing pressure. Hull stress increasing," Gray reported. "The swarm is trying to crush us." "They know we're here," Ellis said. "Our stealth is compromised." Reed leaned forward in his chair. "How close do we need to be for the device to work?" Ellis checked her. "Calculations. Ideally within 5,000 kilometers of the nexus." "Patel?" The pilot didn't take her eyes off her controls. "Current distance, 7,000 kilometers and closing. At this rate, we'll reach optimal range in 90 seconds. More alarms joined the first as the pressure on the hull increased. A groaning sound echoed through the ship as metal strained against forces it was never designed to withstand. "Hull breach in Section 4, Gray announced, her voice remarkably calm. "Emergency seals engaged." 60 seconds to optimal range, Patel reported. Reed knew they might not have 60 seconds. "Ellis, activate the device now. We may not get any closer." Ellis hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Activating." She pressed a sequence of commands into her console. The device, a quantum transmitter, powered up. Unlike conventional weapons, it didn't fire energy beams or projectiles. Instead, it broadcast a signal encoded with something uniquely human. The signal contained music. Not just any music, but a complex symphony created by Earth's greatest composers, layered with mathematical paradoxes that had no solutions, and patterns derived from Earth's most chaotic natural systems. The irregular heartbeats of human hearts, the unpredictable movements of ocean waves, the random neural firings of dreaming human brains. "Transmission active," Ellis confirmed. "Signal strength at 80% and climbing." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The swarm continued to press against the ship, seeking entry points, trying to consume them. Then suddenly, the pressure lessened. On the view screen, they could see the swarm around them begin to move differently, no longer flowing in smooth, coordinated patterns but jerking and twitching as if confused. "It's working," Ellis exclaimed, watching her readings. "The signal is disrupting their communication. Network." The pulsing nexus point ahead began to flicker, its rhythm becoming irregular. "The hive mind can't process what we're sending," Ellis explained, unable to hide her excitement. "The music contains patterns it tries to analyze, but they break down into chaos. The mathematical paradoxes create logical loops that have no resolution." Gray smiled for the first time since the mission began. "We're giving it a headache." Around them, the disruption spread through the swarm like ripples in a pond. Parts began moving independently, losing connection with the whole. Some sections stopped moving entirely. Hull pressure dropping, Gray reported. The swarm's cohesion is failing. Patel, get us out of here, Reed ordered. Maximum speed. The pilot didn't need to be told twice. The Firefly's engines roared to life, pushing the small ship through the increasingly disorganized mass of the swarm. Particles that had moved with intelligence and purpose now drifted aimlessly or collided with each other. Structural integrity at 40%, Gray warned. We need to clear the swarm soon. The Nexus is completely destabilized, Ellis reported, watching her sensors. The effect is spreading throughout the entire swarm. The ship shuddered and groaned as Patel pushed it to its limits. Through the viewports, they could see the black mass thinning, breaking apart into smaller and smaller pieces. Almost clear, Patel announced, her hands flying over the controls. 10 seconds. Those 10 seconds felt like hours as the damaged ship fought its way free. Finally, they burst out of the black cloud into open space. Behind them, the massive swarm continued to break apart, dissolving into harmless particles. We did it, Ellis said softly, almost unable to believe it. Signal the fleet, Reed ordered. Tell them. He was interrupted as a section of the bridge ceiling collapsed, nearly crushing him. Captain, Gray called out, moving to help him. Reed waved her off. I'm fine. Signal the fleet. Let them know the mission was successful. As the Firefly limped back to rejoin the combined fleet, they received reports from across the battlefield. Throughout all 5 star systems where the swarm had split its forces, the same dissolution was occurring. The quantum signal had affected all parts of the swarm simultaneously, regardless of distance. Proof that Ellis's theory about their faster-than-light communication had been correct. When the damaged Firefly finally docked with the Dauntless, Ambassador Vin was waiting in the bay with a team of Tellurian doctors. The crew emerged from the ship, tired but triumphant. Vin approached Reed and performed a formal bow that involved all 4 of his arms. For generations, the universe feared the species from Earth, the ambassador said, his voice filled with emotion. We called you Deathworlders as an insult. We avoided you because we were afraid of your strength, your aggression, your unpredictability. He extended all 4 hands in a gesture of profound respect that Reed had never seen him use before. Today, we call you saviors. Reed, bruised and exhausted, accepted the gesture with a tired smile. We didn't evolve on a harsh world to conquer the stars, Ambassador. We survived because we learned to protect our own. He looked at the gathered Tellurians. And now, that includes you. In the following weeks, as the human fleet prepared for the journey home, news spread throughout the Tellurian Alliance. When faced with extinction, they had begged for help, and the Deathworlders had answered. The universe would never see humanity the same way again,